All right, for today's video review, we're continuing on with these Buzzworthy Bumblebee Worlds Collide figures, and this time around we are taking a look at Nemesis Primal, which is the only figure in this set that is a new character. I mean, it's just an evil version of Optimus Primal, so it's kind of like taking the Nemesis Prime formula and doing it and giving it to Nemesis and Optimus Primal, but it's not a character that we've ever had before, at least not that I'm aware of. But yeah, he's pretty similar, obviously, to Optimus Primal, but with a much more evil color scheme. I am really digging this purple with bright red eyes gorilla mode. I really like the decision that they made to like keep the gorilla mode like fur black, just like Optimus Primal. But then do other things to make it look more evil, because like that head sculpt really does pop with the purple and red. And yeah, it's the same gorilla mode as Optimus Primal. It comes with the same weapons here, except now his swords are blood red rather than the silver blue color. They store the exact same way. You just peg them onto the sides here, and it looks a little bit goofy, but in terms of like just pegging weapons onto to the side of an animal, this looks a little bit better than with some of the other figures. And I could imagine like an evil gorilla like this like gives does not care at all about about having swords sticking off the side of his back. So I think that's kind of a cool image, but it works well enough. Here he is with all the other figures that he comes with. There's Bumblebee and Fangry and Blackarachnia, just to get the whole team there. Like I've said before, like obviously the Worlds Collide pack is kind of like weird, sort of obscure characters together. Like these two, I think, fit relatively well together, but like them being with Bumblebee and Fangry makes little to no sense. But I guess that's kind of the whole idea of the pack. What's kind of interesting about this pack is that it's actually priced at like $84, which mathematically is like sure, four deluxes at 21 each, which is weird for a couple of reasons. One, because deluxes don't cost that anymore. Like they're now like $22. So you'd think that even with that alone, that they would have it add up to be a little bit more than 84, right? It'd probably be like, 88, right? Like $90 ish before tax or whatever. But then, considering the fact that this is not four deluxes, this is three deluxes and a Voyager. Like, did they forget that the Optimus Primal mold is a Voyager? Because this guy, usually, the Voyagers are worth $30. So, do the math there. Three deluxes and one Voyager would at least even if they were just $20 each and then $30, that's still already 90. So you're getting a pretty good deal with this pack, because like it's kind of priced as if it were four deluxes rather than three deluxes and a Voyager. So, obviously that is not a complaint in any way. I'm happy to pay less, especially since it's like, a bunch of repaints that I didn't necessarily need, but was kind of interested in. But, something that's worth mentioning. But yeah, there he is with them. And here he is, of course, with the original Optimus Primal from Kingdom. And they look pretty good together. Obviously, this is not a character that has existed prior, but it's a neat concept. I like, especially in robot mode. I think the colors really pop enough to make this guy kind of feel like worth it, since he didn't totally feel like he needed to exist to begin with. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is for gorilla mode. I mean, you can do so it still has the option to do the like King Kong esque transformation, where instead of doing the legs like that, you like fold them down on this dedicated extra hinge here to like double hinge them out like that, and have it be like a gorilla that's more standing up straight, like I said, like King Kong. Um, Still looks bad in my opinion. Like it's really the kind of thing where like it's almost entirely made just for photography, I feel like, because in certain angles of photography I feel like it looks okay, like if you're looking at it from straight on. But if you're handling the object in a physical space, like it just doesn't look good. Like it looks stupid and weird, and like the knees of the gorilla are supposed to be in the middle here, not up here. That's like the whole you know idea of having the legs hinged like that. It's not the worst thing, but like if you look at it from the side and having that like weird cut there, like I just don't think it looks very good. And like the chin kind of sinking into the body like that, I much prefer to have him in the kind of more anatomically correct gorilla mode where he's doing the knuckle dragging thing. Um, and yeah, it's like it's kind of the thing where it's like I sort of wish they just didn't do that, because in the other modes those extra knee joints kind of only are more annoying. Like they don't add anything to the robot mode. They're literally just for that purpose. But yeah, it is what it is. Transformation wise, it's of course exactly the same as the original Kingdom Optimus Primal. You just take this back flap here, which I didn't mention it on his review, but I kind of wish this like tabbed in at all in gorilla mode. Not a huge deal. It sits just fine, but it is sometimes kind of annoying to get those knees like properly underneath there. But anyway, you take that panel and you rotate it around like that, and then there's a tab right there that goes into a slot right there. Fold down the knees so that they're straight, and then bring them down like this. There's this front pelt here. You just kind of untab that. You still leave it there. You just kind of untab it so there's more clearance for the legs to sit a little bit further back. And then you take these toe joints here and fold them down. It'll click into place, which I only very recently realized could do. I thought that it just kind of sat underneath like that, but you can actually click them into place. Cool. And then you take this section and you rotate them around at the waist. Take this whole back section here and you want to pull it down like that. Pull this up on the slider. Fold the gorilla mode head down like that. Rotate it around on that little armature and then fold it in so it's kind of like sitting a little bit more compressed. Rotate this around. This is a good point if you want the weapons out, the shoulder cannons. This is when you would fold them out. Kind of annoying to get like your finger underneath there and you have to kind of like rotate this part out of the way, but there they are. And then you compress this back in, take the chest panel here and flip it around, and then take this whole section and clip it back in place. And then you can take the shoulder pads here and rotate them up, rotate the fists if you had them rotated, and close the fingers. And yeah, there you have Nemesis Primal in his robot mode, and he looks really slick. This was not a character that I really, obviously had any attachment to, since this is the first iteration to it, and nor is it a concept that I think needs to exist. But because like I don't know, it feels like Optimus Primal and Nemesis Prime are like two gimmicks of like recreating Optimus Prime. So it's like, oh, the animal version of Optimus Prime and the evil version of Optimus Prime. So then to have the evil animal version feels like, adding on a little bit too much. But whatever, it still works, especially since Optimus Primal, especially in media and stuff, has kind of become pretty defined as his own character. So, it's somewhat of an unnecessary concept, but it does look really nice. I love the purple and the silver and the metallic teal. Like it just really pops. And the other neat thing about this figure is it actually has a new head sculpt, which is it's like sort of like the plot thickens here, because like I'm sort of curious what their original plans were with the Beast Wars line, because like it seems like we're seeing kind of a few of these instances of like these more toy accurate heads popping up. Like we had the Blackarachnia figure that has now the more toy accurate head in this pack, this figure. Now this one has a bit more of a toy accurate head, because the original Optimus Primal toy didn't have the open mouth plate, it had the closed one. And he did that a few times in the show too, so it still makes sense. It's still like a show accurate head sculpt too, but the more, he more often than not had his faceplate down. And then there was like those weird images that we saw that had like, people found in the wild, like variances of the Beast Wars Megatron mold with the more toy accurate head with the kind of like sneer with the like showing his teeth. And that we thought was going to be used for T-Rex, the Beast Machines homage character, and now we're seeing that show up, and it has the same head sculpt as the original one, so we still actually haven't officially seen this like other Beast Wars Megatron head sculpt used on anything, which is just very confusing. So I'm sort of curious what their original plans with this line were, because like it seems like maybe they might have intended originally to have these like variances and head sculpts or something like that, because that's now 3 characters that we have that have like toy accurate head sculpts like floating out there somewhere in a variety of different ways. But yeah, no, it's a really nice head sculpt, and it kind of looks a little bit more sinister too, just with the faceplate down. I can't tell if that's like just an effect of like the the red eyes in it or anything, or if there's like actually any difference in the sculpting with like how the eyes are oriented. But no, it looks really cool. Articulation in this mode is his head is on a ball joint, um, about the same range as the other one. Like it's still mostly the same mold, even if it's got the face plate. The shoulders can rotate around like that, can go out to the side like that. They can also kind of hinge in and out like this. I didn't really talk about articulation for gorilla mode, but like in terms of the arms, it's pretty much the same thing. The elbows have a nice deep bend there. He's got a wrist swivel, and then the fingers can open and close there on a hinge. He's got a waist rotation, universal joints at the hips here, so they can rotate forward and back. You can move the butt flap out of the way, out to the side about that much. He's got a thigh swivel. He's got a pretty good deep knee bend, and then you can activate that other joint to like do a little bit extra. Just like the original mold, I find that one of the knees tabs in a little bit better than the other one. Like this one seems fine, and it like tabs in, that like secondary knee tabs in really well, which means that when you're actually bending his leg, it's actually moving the correct knee joint. But this one, like if I'm just trying to bend the leg, it just activates that second knee joint, which just looks a lot worse in my opinion. So you have to kind of like actively keep it tabbed in and then bend it, which is a little annoying. And then he's got a little cut here at the thigh, or at the lower part of the leg here, that only swivels about that much, but it can be useful for some poses, and it's definitely a lot more helpful in gorilla mode. And then if you unclick this joint here, the toe can kind of fold up on that piston, and then the gorilla mode toes can also fold down. Oh, there's a little I just noticed that there's a little crack right here on that piece there. That kind of sucks, but not the end of the world, because like it's not like that's a totally necessary joint to use most of the time, but that does kind of suck. I wonder, there's some stress here too, so I bet it had something to do with like the way that they seated in the pin. Huh. I hope that's just an issue with mine, because that's kind of a bummer. But mostly, at least right now, it's just kind of an aesthetic thing rather than an actual mechanical problem. But yeah, no, he looks pretty good. You can obviously give him his weapons, or they have the same tabs here, or the same slots that they were stored in gorilla mode. On the back there, looks obviously a little bit more normal for him to have it stored that way in robot mode. But you can also have him, hold them. Before I do that, he also has the same wrist rocket joint things here that you can push up. And yeah, with the teal, that really pops. I think that looks really cool. And yeah, you just activate those by pushing on this little square underneath his forearm there to bring those up. And then you can take the shoulder cannon joints and like put those down too. So yeah, he's pretty well armed. And I like the decision to make all the guns and stuff teal. It just helps them pop so much. But yeah, obviously he can hold his weapons. And yeah, he's a really nice looking figure overall. Definitely has that Nemesis Prime vibe. The only one thing, like I was talking about with the other figures, how like a lot of them have like slightly looser joints in some places than their original figures. The only thing that really bothers me on him is that the chest plate is a lot looser than the original Optimus Primal. Like it always didn't really have a good place to sit in robot mode, but at least on the original one, this was kind of a tight pin joint, whereas this one is a little bit more floppy. It's not the end of the world. It stays in place just fine. It doesn't like flop about, but when you're messing with him, it's really easy to kind of bump that out of place. But yeah, otherwise, his joints, some of them feel a little bit looser, but not really to the detriment of the figure. Like I think it still feels relatively good and tight, and it's just really that chest panel that doesn't feel quite up to snuff. Here he is again with his box mates. I guess there's Bumblebee and Blackarachnia and Fangry, and yeah, like I said, they all look good together, even though they're all kind of weird and different. I think these two in particular I really like together, like an evil Optimus Primal, and in my sort of headcanon, maybe a Blackarachnia who never joined the Maximals. Like I think they kind of work really well together. It's just like evil versions of like characters who ultimately ended up being good, at least in the Beast Wars show. I guess spoilers if you haven't watched through Beast Wars, but yeah, no, they look pretty good together. Here he is with the original Optimus Primal. It's very good. You can compare the head sculpts there, the mouth plated version versus the open mouth plated version. Otherwise the sculpting is mostly the same. It's pretty much just that is the big difference. And then the comparison that I really like to make with him is to take Nemesis Primal and put him next to Nemesis Prime. And I think they look really cool together. Like they could definitely, tag team in a fight or something like that, especially because like just happenstantially, he's got the two swords and he came with the two swords and at least one of his swords is red. I don't know. I think they look really cool together. But yeah, he's a really good figure overall. He's wasn't really a figure that I was like super highly anticipating just because like I don't need an evil version of Optimus Primal. It's like what are we doing evil versions of Ultra Magnus now too, and then it's like one Nemesis Prime, and then we also have Shattered Glass Optimus Prime. It's like there's just so many different like variations of Optimus Prime and Optimus Primal, but now having him in hand, like he's a really slick figure with a nice paint job, and then like out of the three in the set that I really wanted, I feel like he feels the best in terms of like quality control type stuff. Like Bumblebee is fine, but I wasn't really like super buying the set for Bumblebee. But he looks pretty good, and he still feels pretty much on snuff with the original Optimus Primal, aside from that chest plate being a little bit floppy. But yeah, there's not really a whole lot else to say about him. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And yeah, our next one is going to be our last of these Buzzworthy Bumblebee guys, and it's going to be the main man himself is Bumblebee. But yeah, without further ado, here we have Transformers Buzzworthy Bumblebee Worlds Collide 4-pack Nemesis Primal.